Welcome to the Brain Dump. I am your host, Anthony Vicino, joined as always by my partner in crime, Austin Linney. And this is the podcast where we break down the psychology of success, what it means, how do we get it, where do we find it? I don't know. But hopefully together we can get a little bit closer. So, Austin, how are you doing today? You were mentioning before we went live that you're feeling a little bit off. I think this episode is going to get your mind right. It's going to get you focused. It's going to get you psyched. What do you think?
I think so. I don't know, when you're on your 35th podcast for the week, you kind of feel like sometimes you might be in a little bit of a washer machine. So we're going to talk about something that isn't real estate today. So this is going to get me real excited to have a deep, thoughtful conversation. And we have my boy Sal in the house. What's going on, my brother?
Hey, brother. It's good to see you. Good to see your handsome face. And Anthony, it's great to be on here. Appreciate you having me on.
You know, you say that, Sal, about the beautiful face. I just want to point out, like, between Austin's beard, your hair, I feel like lackluster by comparison to everybody bringing their A game to this podcast today. I'm just going to say that.
Well, I got to say, Anthony, your eyebrows look spectacular today.
I shaved them just yesterday. So they've been hedged, got the hedge clippers out.
We might have to rename this podcast if y'all keep going down this train of thought. So
that's
Sal,
fair. Get us on track.
Sal, if you could take a couple of minutes and just introduce who you are and what you do, and then we'll get going from there, brother.
Right on, brother. Well, thank you for that. Well, for everybody here listening, I am a healer. I am a teacher, a guide, and my life story is one that might be similar to other people, but long story short, I was born in Peru in a third world country. My family came over, typical immigrant story. And I, being in high school and being in college here, was a bit disillusioned by the entire mindset and mentality that people had around me. I thought that this imaginary race to get to a white picket fence, 2 kids and a car and a house and everything just didn't align with me. And so from an early age on, I started to question, and thankfully I was put into an environment where I was allowed to grow and be exposed to all these different concepts about growth and personal development. I started in Tony Robbins at 17, and through that journey of now it's like 7 or 8 years in this industry, I have connected myself to the real truths that are out there and that a lot of people are disconnected from. And so my passion here is to awaken that within others, because once we hear these truths, something in our soul, something in our gut just says, that's right. I know that's right. And I want to follow that. And so my passion is to guide people and to lead them through to become the fullest expression of themselves. And as a healer, as a guide, as a coach, as a teacher, all these different names for what you want to be, I'm your best friend. I'm the guy that's going to understand you and connect with you so that you can connect with your own self, your own truth. And that's a little bit about what I do. And I live in Los Angeles, California now. It's beautiful out here and loving life, man. Just living it up always.
I want to know what it means to realize the fullest expression of oneself. What's that look like? And this is, I want to go around the table and talk. I want to get everybody's insight on this one, because I think this podcast, one of the core things that we're trying to even figure out, it's all about the psychology of success, but to even like shoot for success, we have to first define it in so many different ways, and everybody has a different definition. So what's that mean for you, Sal and Austin, like to find that fullest expression of self and say, I am a success?
Austin, you want to go?
No, you go ahead.
All right. So everybody talks about purpose, right? People talk about ask the question, what's my purpose? They read books, they talk to coaches, they do online tests, whatever they want to do. They read their astrological charts to find out, what am I here on earth to do? How can I become the fullest expression, reach my quote unquote potential, and do what I was put here on earth to do? And that is such a loaded question, because it has so much convolution with what we know as the ego, the insane mind. And so when we talk about purpose and reaching potential, people start getting into, well, my purpose is to inspire, my purpose is to change, my purpose is to heal the world, to save the planet. And then it becomes this game of comparison, like, oh, my purpose. is greater than that guy's purpose, or I'm reaching for something bigger. And then you might judge others and say, oh, you're not doing enough, or you're not reaching high enough. You're not setting big enough goals. And that is just a game that you play with yourself, and you get stuck in this not enoughness, right? And so when you don't feel enough, then you're not really playing full out to your full expression, and you're not creating at your full capacity. And so my realization has been here, and maybe my hallucination, because, prove me wrong, but if we can align ourselves with a soul purpose as a humanity, as a consciousness, that our purpose is to truly just live to the fullest expression of ourselves, and be who we want to be, regardless of what other people think, outside of people's projections and judgments and systems and rankings or whatever, then we can start simplifying and whittling away the things that don't serve us, and those projections, those expectations of other people, and then truly express our passions and let that creativity, that authenticity shine through. When we do that, we can truly create anything, because we become limitless. We become unstoppable.
As he says that, it literally is a window into what I do in coaching. As he says that, because people come to me, just like he said, with a convoluted view of where they're headed. And my new analogy that I've used 3 times already on the podcast today is entrepreneurship or investing is like a big oak tree. You start walking out to the end of one of the branches, and you get to the end of the branches and you look around and go, what the fuck am I doing here? Because we're on somebody else's path. And so what I do is hold up a mirror to everybody and say, no, that's for your dad. No, that's for your mom. No, that's for the girl that left you. And then version of yourself dies. And then we're finally back to ground zero. And then we go from ground zero and we start rebuilding who you are. And you have clients that literally go, dude, could you stop beating me up? And I said, no, I'm not going to beat you up until you're ready to be born again. And that's exactly what he's talking about, is finding your soul purpose and not chasing some triggered emotion off of a false narrative.
I'm curious, what do you guys think about the idea of, because we all hear like start with why, you have to have your purpose, you have to have this meaning. Do you think you have to have a purpose, or do you think it's enough just to do things that have purpose?
I think more important than purpose is to have passion. Passion, because that is what really connects you to what you're doing. If not, you're just playing an empty game. You're keeping score for no reason. Who's going to win? Nobody's going to win or lose. It's just you who's suffering and experiencing that pain of not doing what you really want in this life. And so, like I said before, the purpose of life is to live it as fully and as lovingly and as presently as you can, to really be right here, to enjoy in every single little moment, enjoy the little things. And yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I think that's fantastic. I like it. I'm digging what you're putting down. It reminds me a lot. So I talk about this quite a bit, which is the 4 spheres of influence. And these are the things that in my mind, I attribute to, if I can get these 4 things locked down in my life, then I'm going to be doing pretty good. And those are mindset, my health, my wealth, and my ability to communicate with the world. So mindset is that lens through which we see the world. Health, that's our body. That's a vehicle that's carrying us. Wealth, money doesn't solve all your problems, but it solves all your money problems. And then communication is our ability to connect and, build relationships with people, to understand and to be understood. And one of the questions I get a lot is like, how do you give back? And I always answer, the way that I give back is by trying to be the best version of myself as possible. Because by being the best version of myself, then it gives people around me the subtle permission for them to go and do the same. Like, go focus on you. And it's okay to, to try and be the best version of yourself, however you express that. Because when everybody, if everybody had their health, their wealth, their mindset, and their communication ability figured out and locked down, then everybody would have the ability just to go and focus on the problems in life that mean the most to them. You wouldn't be stuck working a job that you hate. You wouldn't be forced, doing work that you don't find purpose and fulfillment in. So just imagine a world where everybody just wakes up every day and they go and they solve the problems that they're the most passionate to solve. Like, that would be a pretty cool world. Austin, you look like you're deeply pontificating.
No, you're just 100% correct. But what I would love to ask Sal in that vein is, what do you tell somebody that has the kids, has the bills, has the house, they're in a job, they've been in it for 15 years, and they want something different, and they're fighting for something different, but they don't see a way out?
Blow it up. I don't know.
We
tear it all down, start over from the ground.
Lord knows we know that. That's my strategy. Just saying.
Some people can't take that uncertainty, and I think it goes back to a quote that I really love by old Uncle Tony Robbins, that he says that the quality of your life is directly proportional to the amount of uncertainty you're willing to tolerate. And so by stepping into a space where you don't know where you're going to, get that next paycheck, you don't know the business that you're going to build, but you're following something that's deeper than your old beliefs or the expectations of others, then that is a place where you can be free. And freedom and fulfillment is not something that is attainable. It's not some sort of destination. It's something that starts from within. So even if you have the kids, you have the wife, the house, and the bills and the mortgages and all that stuff, you can still, within that construct, within those constraints, be free. Maybe not as, as much as a 22-year-old backpacking throughout the world, but you have to live with the choices that you made eventually. And within that you're going to find even deeper learning and deeper surrender. And so my message to them would be to still go for it, because there is so much not only that you can do for yourself, but for your kids, to show them that, yes, mommy and daddy may have built this lifestyle based on false information, but now we're making a shift, and we can, like you said, Anthony, give back to our kids and instill them with that mindset, instill them with those truths that they're going to go on, maybe tell their little friends, and their little friends are going to start questioning their parents, and that becomes an exponential effect. And so how we give back is we alleviate suffering of others. And that could be as simple as connecting and looking that cashier at Trader Joe's in the eye and saying, you have a great day, or complimenting them, or bringing some presence to the monotonous rhythm and clink and clank of daily life in America, and to truly try and inspire others to be a higher version of themselves.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with that idea of helping, helping people aspire. A lot of times within this world where people are working their W-2s, or they're stuck in the rut, or they have the family and they have the house, they have the dream that they were told they need to go and acquire. And now they have it, but they're not happy with it, but they're not allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to be unhappy once you got the dream, because shut up, you got the thing. But when you're not happy at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what job you're working or who's around you. If you're not fundamentally happy, then it's all a little bit of a moot point. So when we're talking about passion, when we're talking about purpose or success, where does happiness play a role? Is it the most meaningful aspect of it, or is it not meaningful at all? Because at the end of the day, if you had to choose, would you choose happiness, or would you choose a life of happiness and contentment, or would you choose a life of purpose and impact?
I would choose purpose and impact. I mean, ultimately, I have a little bit of a different story. I think that I have been through hell and back for a reason. I think that sometimes, as I'm saying that out loud, I think I lose myself in my purpose, because I feel like I'm wanting people to change so hard, but sometimes I feel like they're not changing in the speed that I would like it. And so I get frustrated when ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody's on their own journey, and all I can provide is the space necessary and the wisdom that I have through my journey. And so as I say that out loud, it makes me realize that I think where I get disconnected is that my new normal of what I expect out of myself is so much greater than it was 6 months ago, that sometimes I don't sit and reflect on how far I've come in a short amount of time. And that's where I lose the disconnection between my purpose and my impact.
I like that. How about you, Saul? What do you think? Happiness or impact?
Happiness or impact? I would go a little bit deeper on that and challenge your notion of happiness, because I believe, and language-wise and just conceptually, that happiness is fleeting. And happiness often comes from something external that makes you happy. Now, joy is much deeper, much more long-lasting, and you can derive joy from within and find joy in the little things, and good and the bad, as you become grateful for everything. Gratitude leads to joy. And if you can find that in the good and the bad, then you're truly free, because then you stop judging things for good and bad, and you stop saying, this makes me happy, this makes me angry, this makes me sad. So I would choose joy over this massive purpose and impact. And to play a little bit of angel's advocate, I think in this industry of personal development, of growth and coaching and making an impact, we fetishize creating an impact and having a purpose and having this mission, right? Like, the world doesn't need another Ram Dass. It doesn't need another Tony Robbins. It doesn't need another Eckhart Tolle. The world needs individual people being kind to one another and elevating each other hand in hand. That's how we're going to make a difference, because then we're just stuck over here on this wing preaching this, while the rest of the masses are just following along with what they've been told for forever. And so that effect is much more organic, and it's much more effective than one guy standing up and saying, I have all the answers. And that is what I like to focus on, truly.
Yeah, when you're talking about happiness being a state, it reminds me of the Buddhist concept of duality of existence, where you know a thing by its opposite. And we know happiness because we're all familiar with sadness. And in the same way, it reminds me of Viktor Frankl's search for meaning, or man's first search for meaning. And, he spent time in Auschwitz and managed to not just survive, but also to thrive in a place where you would just never suspect that, because for him, it wasn't about the happiness or trying to find this fleeting state of contentment, but it was about finding purpose and what he was there to do. And that purpose, in a lot of ways, was helping the people around him get through the suffering and to make it tolerable. And many of them didn't make it through, obviously, but that was the purpose that he derived, which I always find it really interesting when you ask people, and you try to get really down to the root of, like, do you want to be happy or do you want to be fulfilled? Because entrepreneurs, I think they get into the set of, like, I'm not allowed to be happy. I'm purpose driven. I have this goal. I need to go after this goal. And if I get the goal, then I can be happy. Or if I'm on the path of getting that goal, then I can be happy. And that leads to a lot of mental anguish, because if you end up getting the goal, you're going to discover the goal didn't make you happy. And then you're going to be real bummed because you went all that way to get a thing. And you're like, oh, dang, it didn't make me happy. So where do we find the happiness then? Like, I know Austin turns to the, butterflies and rainbows and just, like, holding his breath until he gets dizzy.
No, I mean, dude, I mean, ultimately, like, as I go farther down the hole of real estate and everything, watching a kid where his family grew up their whole life as a W-2 employee, or their dad only worked a certain job, and him finding real estate, and we helped him out, and, like, he's getting some time, like, these are the moments that I get super excited when you give somebody that book, right? And he's like, oh, dude, that book changed me. Like, and, like, I realized through a shitload of work and my life falling apart about 7 times, that moment for me is really what it's all about. And I'll tell you about a moment that changed my life with this man right here, actually. I've always been, and this is hard, Anthony's gonna look up, but in some settings I am a shy guy. Like, I really am a shy guy, and I know exactly. But we had an amazing day in Malibu, and we were on the beach, and I didn't want to take off my shirt because I like didn't feel good. And Sal and his buddy were playing in the ocean. It was beautiful. I mean, it's the most beautiful day I've ever seen, 60 degrees. And they like talked me into like going in the ocean, even though I didn't have any, I just had like underwear on. And so I took off all my shit and I just like ran in and I dove in the ocean. It was cold as shit. And I was like laughing, and it was awesome. It was like one of those moments, like the birds, the first time in my life I heard the birds, like the real birds. And what's crazy is ever since that moment, every time I find water, I jump in it now, no matter where I'm at, Washington, Oregon. And for me, it was like my soul was like awakening out of this slumber. And then that's when I started finding my, like, who I really was looking for, I guess myself. And I started having a relationship with myself, which in turn has helped other people by me being okay with who I am, is letting me step into my role as a coach and show people that it's out there, if that makes any sense why I went off on that long story.
And I want to follow that, Austin. Thank you for bringing me back to that moment, because it was so special to see you finally play. And that is the key to happiness, joy, to fulfillment, is once you realize that you as a being, as a soul, are eternal and you're safe, and there's really everything kind of is an illusion, as they say in the Matrix, then you realize that everything can become play. Like life isn't so serious. Like you can, take that risk. You can jump in the water and get your car seat wet after, because it doesn't fucking matter. Right? You're just playing. We're just kids in the sand. And so once you realize that, man, that it just makes a massive shift on your mindset, like you said, one of these 4 pillars, because then you're not taking yourself so seriously, and you're like, wow, life is pretty good.
True story. Cop pulls up. We're not supposed to be in the ocean. And he looks at us and he goes, "The day is so beautiful. How could I get mad at y'all? Enjoy." And I was like, he got it too, man. It's just like 66 degrees. My first time in Malibu, $20 million houses right to the right. Like, it was just, I mean, that place, when California's showing out, we'll forget all the other stuff. It really cannot be beat, to be in that beauty.
And to make a point to tie it back to what I was saying earlier, the reason, maybe not the reason why, but this is why I perceived it, why, because he let us go, is because I didn't go up to him and get defensive. I didn't take it personal. And that's one of the things that I harp on all the time. One of the 4 agreements, you guys have both read that book, is don't take anything personal. If that guy's there to give me a ticket, it's his job. Somebody else will do it. It's not that he has something against me, not something against us having fun. And so when I approached him, I said, "Hey man, what's going on? Like, tell me." And then I hit him with the, you guys love this. I hit him with the Good Will Hunting, Robin Williams to Matt Damon, the "It's not your fault." It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're just a cop. Somebody told you to do this. Somebody set this COVID restriction. It's not your fault. He's like, "Dude, you're right. You're right. I'm gonna not let you guys play. Get out of here."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple things I want to unpack here. So one is the idea of play and how important that is. I have 11 core virtues or values that I try to keep at the front of my mind at all times. But what I do on a week by week basis is each week I pick one of those values and I say, this is the value that I'm going to prioritize, I'm going to work on. So some weeks that might be relationships. I'm going to focus on, connecting more closely with my friends or my family, or it might be intelligence. And so this week I'm going to focus on trying to expand my learnings, my knowledge. One of those that's on there that when I tell people about my values, that always catches them off guard is playfulness. Playfulness is one of my core values. And it's fundamental to who I am. If you guys spend any amount of time with me, I joke around like almost constantly. Like it's just like what I like to do. And so I don't take anything too seriously. And when we're dealing with business or real estate or these things where tons of money or people's lives are involved, it's very serious business, but it's really not. At the end of the day, it's all fun. And if you have fun, you're going to do better in general. So, I love this idea that it's not your fault. And just understand, no matter who you're dealing with in the world, as you go out of your house, people are dealing with shit that you have no idea. You have no idea. That guy, that cop, like, you don't know. Last week, he might have lost his buddy who got shot, responding to a break-in. You don't know. And he might be having the worst day of his life. And the last thing he wants to do is go up and deal with you bums on the beach who are breaking the rules. Like, he just doesn't want to deal with it. So like, you just don't know where people are coming from. So be compassionate and always give the benefit of the doubt and say, and understand that, hey, this person, they might be going through something right now. And even if they're not, that's okay too. Like, it's okay.
100%. And I think one of the things that taught me that was attachment. And for me, I was super emotional most of my life, where my emotions were triggered up and down with people. And as I started learning more about attachment and moving myself away from that, it really allowed me to see everybody. We were riding in that same, maybe the day after, we were riding, and one of our friends called us Brad Johnson, and he told me something that changed my life forever in the vein that you just said. He said, and we were on Sunset Boulevard, I remember, and he said, remember that when you run into people, and everybody that you're running into in life, somebody is hurting from something. And when you can have compassion in your heart that something is hurting them, then you will take nothing to offense. Or you won't take anything personally. And for me, that's changed my life, because I used to be the guy that flew off the handle. I used to be the guy that used to get in altercations in public. Maybe because I liked it a little bit, but that's not me anymore. And what I've realized is that people, right? I had to deal with something very awkward last week at the end of the week. And I was all fired up going into the call, like ready to fucking burn like when you come up against me, like I go hard. And I said to myself, well, mainly my girlfriend, thank goodness for her. She said, if you just be calm, like he's not going to play off that energy. And so I was just like very matter of fact, and nothing happened. And it was like and so it's like odd when you start switching how you come into the situation and taking a moment and taking a breath. And I'm sure Sal has a big deal with that whole thing, is that people just run in with that unbranded emotion most of the time.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what I harp on all the time, you and I, Austin, is the difference between reaction and response. Most people are out reacting to life, reacting to the things that happen to them in their daily lives, the circumstances that they were born into, to the things that someone says to them out in the street, at home, by their spouse. And if we could practice a little bit more presence, a little bit more awareness of how we're reacting, then we can actually create a little more space in that area between stimulus and reaction, and then choose a response that actually serves how we want to be, how we want to align with our values. Like you said, Anthony, it's so important to have a set of values that you're always moving towards. And when you have that compass, then you can introduce the awareness to respond in the way that would serve you best and would serve that person best, in compassion, out of love. And yeah, I mean, I could go on for days about this, but basically the world needs more compassion. The world needs more presence with each other and more patience.
Yeah. The key word I want to use here is intentionality. As something happens when we expect something to happen. So when you go up to the cop and you expect him to be confrontational or defensive or to be a jerk, then he's going to be that. He's going to be that thing. But is that your intention? Is that what you want to have happen? Is that the outcome that you desire? No, like in a perfect world, you would like to just stay on the beach and keep playing. Okay, well, put that into the universe. Let that be your expectation, and come at it from that perspective, and you have a better chance of realizing that goal. And that's just one example of on the beach, but this pertains to every aspect of life, whether we're dealing with loved ones, we're dealing with colleagues, or we're in a negotiation with a seller. What is the intentionality that we're bringing to the table? Are we trying to create a fight? Like Austin, you kind of mentioned that, like maybe you kind of want to start a fight, but is that really ultimately serving the desired end state? Well, no, like you just want to do it because it maybe feels good, or it's something that you can focus on. It's easy. It's always easy to get angry, right? That's always an easy backdoor to take.
Yeah, it's the shortcut for sure. Because, what's interesting about America is, and I'm 100% guilty of this, and I've gotten way better at it, especially through text and phone calls. We are always expected to have the answer right away. I mean, right away. Like you're like some computer, like, boop, 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 I have the right answer. And like Sal teaches and our friend Brad Johnson, like you can sit with it for a little bit. You can sit with it and make sure that you answer appropriately. But we become this society of just like, yes, have the answer right now, have the answer right now. And it's like, let me think on it for a minute. Let me make sure that my emotions aren't tied to it and we're entering a neutral state of thinking, right? I think that we become this, like with technology, we become this, we got to answer right away. And I think it's getting a lot of people in trouble.
There's a lot of power to telling somebody, hey, for some reason I'm having an emotional response to that question, or it's just the thing that you said, and I need to unpack it before I respond. Like I'll get back to you, but I need a moment to try and figure it out for myself why I'm feeling this way. It's okay to take that space, and maybe you don't need to actually verbalize it. A lot of times just thinking that for yourself and then allowing yourself the emotional distance to figure out like, why am I getting frustrated or upset about this? I have a tendency to be on the opposite side of that, where I have one particular friend, best friend in my life, where he will take a really long time to get back to me, like up to a week, sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I'm like, what are you doing over there? And I'll get really frustrated because my expectation is, hey, I'm your best friend. You get back to me. Like we're in constant communication, but that's a me thing, not a him thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
He's going through his life. He's dealing with his things. And I don't have full insight into that. So just having that perspective of like, why am I getting emotional about his lack of a response? Because that's a me thing. It's not a him thing.
I think it's a space where you, Anthony, you said it so beautifully, and thank you for sharing that. And a lot of people can learn from that to practice managing their expectations, right? Because they're attached to that. And attachment, as it's defined, is the source of suffering. And attachment is nothing more than a kinesthetic feeling in the body attached to a certain outcome. Like that's it. Like everybody's expecting things. Everybody's attached to the outcomes, and they react emotionally when it doesn't happen. And then they get construed. Disease comes, tightness, and all this kind of stuff. And when you can let go of that and release that attachment, like Austin says, you get deeper and deeper and start finding all the little things that you're attached to, and you start cutting away the sandbags of your hot air balloon. Then you could just kind of rise with everybody else.
And I haven't shared this yet because I've been waiting for the right time, but this is kind of the work, not in the same vein, but this is what Sal does. And I want to show my first part of the year, this first couple weeks, Anthony, the same, has been really busy. I mean, really busy, multiple calls, multiple podcasts.
Austin's trying to pack an entire year worth of stuff into the first month.
So long story short, before COVID, I was getting a massage a week or two a month, right? And I just felt the calling that I needed something. Like I needed that again. Like my energy was off. And so I reached out to a buddy who recommended this guy to me. His name's Ray. And he is this, we met and it was like, we're talking about philosophy, like within 5 seconds. And he's like, yeah, I worked for Anna Jim and Aubrey Marcus. And like, he's done all this stuff. And we've seen, like, he's come over 3 times. And I'm telling you right now, last week I was spiraling, and he knows more about the body than I've ever met. And he said, Austin, and I couldn't stop my brain. And so for an hour and a half, turned on the meditation music, and, he did his work, and I'm like a different human afterwards. It's like almost resetting my entire brain. And what I realized is that enough people aren't self-aware to know that I don't have an option to not do that now. Like for me in my week, that is my break stop. And when it happens, I slip, and this is very hard to describe, but during the massage and the body work, I slip into like 3 different consciousnesses of my brain. And I'm meditating for like an hour and a half. And if I didn't have this break, if he wasn't coming over and I was paying him, I wouldn't do it. And so I think in life, we don't give ourselves, our body, our mind, our soul what we need sometimes. I know that going forward, I need to figure out a way to pay for it because I need that, because I'm a better human for that. And I don't, if that resonates with y'all, I mean, it's changed my whole life. I mean, it's really hard to describe.
100%. And put it in an analogy that most people could understand is, think of your brain like a Wi-Fi router. You got so many computers, you got so many deals, you got so many things going on and tapping in. eventually it's going to slow the network down to a place where it's going to crash.
Mm-hmm.
You need to unplug that sucker, replug it back in. And that's what meditation does. That's what body work does. That's what, we're going to dive into this, plant medicine does. It just hits the reset button and says, okay, let's shut this thing off. Let's start from ground zero. Build back up.
Do you have anything, Anthony? I don't, you're so busy too. Do you have anything like that you do for yourself? I know you work out, but.
Yeah, so I have a pretty set morning routine for the first 3 hours of my day that are purely about working on me and viewing myself as the most important project in my life. And so that is I'm very regimented with this. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I go and I exercise for 30 minutes, and that's in the garage, lifting weights, running on the treadmill, do that, then come back, gratitude journal, do my daily affirmations, and then I meditate for an hour. And so I start by working my body and then I work my mind. And I think a lot of people think that meditation, that they're not cut out for it or that they're doing it wrong because they can't find the quiet. And for me, it's never been about finding the quiet. It's about doing the mental work and sitting down and building that mental discipline to sit in the silence and be okay with being uncomfortable. And I find that the more that you put yourself in that environment, the better that you get at thriving in it. And that's a valuable place to be, because life is often a very uncomfortable place, especially when you're pushing the bounds of your abilities. And if you're in business or you're trying to grow, you're going to be uncomfortable quite a bit. And so meditation has been very, very powerful for me in that way. But it took me a long time to build up to that. So when I started, it was just, 10 minutes. And that felt like just the worst. It was just horrible. And now I do an hour a day. And honestly, even after having done this for the last 5 years, the first 42 minutes sucks every time. And it's not until I get to the last 18 that things start getting really good. And so that's where I give myself the space to disconnect. And I think that's what you're talking about there is finding that practice where we just shut off from the world and we're just present with ourselves, because it's a little scary, honestly, to spend time alone in your brain. If you're not used to it, if you haven't gotten comfortable with the person that you are inside, that's the first conversation. That's the first relationship you need to start working on right now.
And what's odd as I stretch the boundaries of me as a coach, there's so much demand on me and my energy. Sal texted me, healers need healers, brother. Mm-hmm. You can't just go at it alone. And I told the bodywork guy, I said, you will be the most important person for when we work together, because you're allowing me to be the best version of myself and reboot, so I can then go out and impact others.
I like that. Healers need healers. That's cool.
I got to trademark that because I started that.
It's true though. So my girlfriend, she's a speech therapist. She works in the school districts, and it's really interesting. These teachers, these people who just dedicate their lives to helping and giving to other people, whether that's their children. It's the same in the medical community. Nurses are in this boat as well, where they dedicate their lives to giving and helping, and they do not take care of themselves at all, both physically, mentally. They're not in a great place because of it. And so, I think you can easily burn yourself out by just giving everything to everybody else. And so the first person that you need to give to is yourself, to make sure that you're strong enough, that you're in a good place to be able to go out and fully help. Leading to Austin's point there, you need somebody who helps you get back to 100% so that you can go out there and have maximum impact or purpose or passion.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We can't pour from an empty cup. It's just like that.
So I want to spend the last part. I don't know if Anthony does this, but I want you to provide as much value as possible. Give us a quick lesson or kind of your thought process behind what breathing techniques does for everybody, and allows you to really take it to the next level.
I love that. There's a lot to unpack there, because back to what Anthony was saying, the ability to be able to sit with yourself and to shut the mind off that runs almost 24 hours a day is so valuable. And that's what you get when you dive into meditation, and meditation combined with breath work. Because often what's known as, and this comes from Dr. Joe Dispenza, is that the seat of the ego, of this conceptual being that your prefrontal cortex has created, lies in the mind, in the conceptual mind. And 99% of people live through this ego. They think that this ego is them. That's when you take things personally. That's when you get frustrated. That's when you get attached to expectations. That's when you project on other people. And when you dive into meditation and breath work, these practices become the bridge from going from your mind and crossing it and coming into your body where you start to feel your energy in the present moment. The body can't live in the future. The body can't live in the past. The body can't live in these ideas that you're creating in your mind. It can only be right here in the present. And so that becomes your anchor for how you get to presence, how you get to just calm and inner peace, and just stop the crazy stories, stop the rambling in the head. So for people that they find themselves that their minds can't stop, they're racing, and they think that meditation is silly and it's not for them, I implore you to have a little bit more patience with it, because you will find a shift where you're able to leave the mind and go into the body, go into your energy, and arrive in the present moment where everything is okay. Everything is just fine. And so that's what I teach. That's what I guide people on, using breath work to cross that bridge between staying in the mind 24/7, or at least every moment that you're awake, and coming into a higher version of yourself, what I like to call the soul, the eternal being, the energy that animates this bag of bones and muscles that's sitting right in front of you. Because guess what? The mind isn't that. The mind just is a concept created by the brain that contains all these memories and just tortures itself on and on and on. And so how can we get back to ourselves? How can we get back to truth? And meditation and breath work is the way I know how, soberly.
There's something there. So back to the meditation real quickly, and this idea that, like, imploring people to be patient with it and understand, like, think about if you're physically out of shape, you go to work out, it is not comfortable, it's hard, but that's the point. You don't go there expecting it to be easy. And the reason that you've been avoiding is because you know it's hard. It's the same with meditation. It's not easy initially, and maybe it never really gets easier. I haven't really experienced a point where it's just gotten really easy, honestly. So, but that's the same with my physical health. Like, if it's not difficult, then it's not challenging you, and you're not growing. You're stagnating. And so, if you come into it with that mindset that it is supposed to be difficult, then that it gives you a little bit more leeway, so that you don't feel as though you're doing it wrong. I do have a buddy who says meditation is like graduate level work. It's PhD level, but breath work is more like elementary school. It's something that's accessible to everybody. And, one of my favorite concepts is the physiological sigh. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this idea, but the physiological sigh is this thing that our bodies do, just completely subconsciously. We take a breath in, and then before we release that breath, we stop, and then we continue the breath. So it's like, so we do a quick in, right? And the science behind this is fascinating. And I'm not going to bore everybody with it, but just understand, like, if you're having a hard time with meditation, maybe start with breath work, because it is something that's a little bit more accessible, at least initially, that you can start down that path and maybe then build into the meditation.
Absolutely. And I like to, for an analogy that people can understand, is if you are someone who is completely out of shape, right? You're 150 pounds, 200 pounds overweight. You haven't seen a gym in 20 years. And someone says to you, hey, you should think about working out. And you say, no, I'm way too far gone for that. I'm going to live the rest of my life unhealthy and die. That's what someone's saying, that someone tells them, hey, you should meditate. You can't keep your thoughts straight and you're really anxious all the time. And they say, no, I'm too crazy to meditate, and I'm just going to live the rest of my life like this. And so just like that big, great fat person, if you go into the gym, you have no idea what you're doing with these machines, with these weights, what you're doing when you're moving them around, go find a trainer. Go get some guidance. go to a breathwork teacher, go to a meditation teacher, allow them to guide you and to provide you the guardrails, because nobody ever learned to ride a bike by themselves. Someone had holding the seat behind them, they had the training wheels, and then you eventually learn to balance on your own.
Yeah. And to that point too, guys, there's a lot of different ways you could go work out. Maybe your thing is free weights, maybe it's tennis, maybe it's just, calisthenics. Like, you figure there's all these different ways that you can be fit, and some of it's going to call to you and some of it's not. So find your niche within that to get physically fit. But it's the same with meditation and breath work. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can come at it. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. So maybe it's just a matter of experimenting with different flavors to see which one resonates with you. Because, if the only choice I ever had for the rest of my life from like a working out standpoint was yoga, I'd probably get pretty out of shape pretty quickly. I'd be pretty unhappy. Don't enjoy it all that much. But if it's just running or it's just rock climbing, like, oh yeah, give me that all day. It's the same with meditation. Maybe you just haven't found the version of it yet that's right for you.
I love it. And then, so Sal, we'll wrap it up here, my brother. If people want to find out more about your work that you're doing, how would they do that?
They can find me. Thank you, Austin. They can find me on Instagram, is probably the easiest platform, at Salva, SALVA .live, LIVE. And I host weekly meditation classes with a group on Zoom. I work with people one-on-one to understand what's going on in their lives and then incorporate that information into the meditation. And so it's 100% personalized to you, as if you were working with a personal trainer. I see where you're at and I bring you to where you want to be as far as your level of consciousness and your level of presence. And you take that with you as far as recordings. And so I just want to help people find that inner peace and find that calm.
Love it.
And something we're going to wrap it up with this gift. I'm going to pick it this time because he taught me this, and since I've noticed it, it's very apparent. He was mentioning to me, if you watch Tony Robbins speak on stage, he's very open-chested, chin up, everything like that. And so when I get into a room, let's say somebody's not feeling great about themselves, or a coaching client is down on themselves, I always make sure that my chin is raised up very high, because they have a tendency to match my chin. And by matching,
because they look up.
Because they look up, and by matching my chin, they open up their chest and they kind of change their energy inside them. And so I always, and especially if I know somebody's having a rough day, I answer the phone really loudly to kind of, so they have to come up with me, and it kind of brings them out of their funk.
That's something a friend of mine likes to call the antenna theory of emotions. Each one of us is like an antenna, and we'll sync up to the highest vibration that's around.
It's true. I dig it. Perfect.
Well, anything else, or you're going to send us out of here, Mr. Anthony?
No, you roll us out. I rolled this in. I did all the hard lifting. You take us out. Get us home.
Well, guys, make sure you send this out to your friends, guys. Thank y'all so much for listening. Sal, Anthony, man, what an amazing conversation. And I hope everybody has a great day.